Strange. By mission standards, this is quite the slow build-up. But we know it won't remain so. After a drive from District 16's nest, they passed through the checkpoint easily with the work visa and then followed the instructions given by Jazara to an empty lot in the back streets. Heathcliff was thrown back at what he was seeing, as the back streets was meant to be tight alleyways, at least the ones that he knows. Well, he's clearly forgotten or didn't want to remember that the back streets of District 21, at least the parts he travelled through, were mudflats full of mutant crabs. And was mostly water with the rest of it, full of eldritch horrors that threatened to turn those unprepared into sub-entities until they were killed themselves. The empty lots stood out to him. Rodier agreed. It's not often that there's this much real estate unused in the back streets. Sinclair noticed the banners hanging by the buildings. Virgilius informed them that Faust and himself will talk to whoever was in charge, telling the rest of them to assess the situation while they do this. He was about to say, "Don't start any trouble," but stopped mid-sentence. Yes. He stopped mid-sentence and said, "Don't start too much trouble until they return," clearly lowering his expectations of the damned dozen. Don Quixote told him that he can place his faith in them. Dante, understanding how little confidence in them to completely avoid trouble he has. Gregor looked around to see what they were working with. The empty lot had warning signs and perimeter tapes all around it, keeping anyone from going inside needlessly. When they reached out to grab the tapes to duck under them, a voice rang out to them, stopping them. Surprising Sinclair, then an overdramatic fixer that looked like he was dressed to operate in the north of the city, claimed to be nice, as they didn't know what they were walking into, telling them that this place was off limits, fixers only, like all those gathered there. Civilians weren't allowed there, which resulted in him complaining that P-Corp was sloppy with the perimeter job. Sinclair asked why he was looking at them. When he said that, Don Quixote saw that he was concerned for their safety. He had nothing to worry. They might not be fixers, but the heart of justice burns inside them, which is just as bright in theirs. They're prepared to brave death to see it. She then proceeded to confidently leap over the warning tape and enter the empty lots. The overdramatic fixer asked if they knew what they were walking into. Don Quixote proudly told him that they're there on a contract much as he was, the eradication of the Muncherland. This was shouted, which drew the attention of the other fixers there, and they hardly looked friendly. In fact, they were alarmed by their arrival. Then one fixer, wielding a massive weapon, strode in their direction. He asked if they were there for the hunt. This practically made the overdramatic fixer his pants in terror, making the excuse that he needed to maintain his weapons and wanted to take care of them, running away, leaving Dante and the damned dozen to deal with this intimidating fixer. The other fixers shook their heads, knowing what was going to happen. He knew that they were no association fixers or even from any well-known fix office, complaining about the small-time freeloaders and the possibility of having to split more iron between them. Heathcliff was seeing that they were already getting these tossers picking a fight. Don Quixote saw that he was from the Fang Hunt office, and it didn't take much to deduce his specialization. The intimidating fixer asks if they've seen one in person before, although Don Quixote wasn't sure what he meant. He then said, "Blood fiends." Me. It's not that long since their first encounter with them. Ishmael asked if that's what they were dealing with. Massault didn't recall being informed of their involvement in this contract. This made the intimidating fixer of the Fang Hunt office see them as amateurs, believing them to be idiots rushing towards a contract for cash and fame, seeing them as not only getting in the way of the hunt, but also ruining the fun of the activity. Roger asked him what was wrong with keeping an eye on the money. Sinclair understood that it's not about the money for them. Yeah. As he stated that his office were there more for fun. Although the money isn't too bad. Urtis understood that this case had special meaning to them, seeing them as fools driven by their creed, which was more troublesome than simpletons driven by money. The Blood Fiend Hunter refused to take part in an operation alongside those idiots who didn't even know what it was like to deal with blood fiends. Actually they do, and they're not there for the money either. Ryushu said STFU. The Blood Fiend Hunter wanted to avoid entertaining amateurs, but he wanted to know what she just said. Sinclair translated that as, "Shut the up, you arrogant son of..." But Ryushu actually said, "Shut that flap hole, ugly." Which made Sinclair feel awkward. Honglu cheerfully said that Sinclair let a bit of his personal feelings bleed into that interpretation, but Ryushu didn't see it as half bad, which amused her. Sinclair made it clear that this wasn't their first Blood Fiend contracts. They've dealt with them before, not seeing them as deserving of being talked down by him like that. He hesitated briefly before continuing. At least when it comes to fighting, Roger saw that as a great comeback, but points would be the dots for the hesitation. This caught the Blood Fiend Hunter's attention. He wanted them to show them what they've got, to see if they're all talk or if they're truly hunters. This Heathcliff off, fighting before they even set foot inside. They even have permits. The Blood Fiend Hunter told them that he wouldn't kill them, just injure them enough to send them away, such as a broken arm and leg, believing that they'll thank them on the train home. Which is more acceptable losses than being drained dry by a blood fiend. Then the Fang Hunt office fought the damned dozen. This wasn't enough to deter them. They defeated the Fang Hunt office fixers, but didn't kill them, as they were still needed for the contracts. After that fight, the Blood Fiend Hunter was impressed by their transformations, as in the identities from the mirror device, where they wielded the abilities and weapons of variants of themselves from other universes. He's not seen anything like that before. Heathcliff asked if that was demonstration enough. He then admitted that they've got enough, well, some skill. Another fixer walked in, seeing them as not half bad, always welcoming cooperation with other fixers who can carry their own weights. He saw them chatting away at the warp train platform. He introduced himself as Romero. "Ah, as in a reference to George A. Romero. Now, you might be thinking, didn't he do a series of movies involving zombies, not vampires? Yeah, he directed that series, but he also directed a vampire movie in 1977 called Martin, which wasn't as well known. Otis noticed that he just sat there and watched the fixers fighting. Romero argued that the fight was already in progress when he got there, and stopping both sides was pointless. Besides, he knew that they could deal with his fixers, making it clear that they're not bad people, they're just on edge. Not surprising considering how many struggles regarding blood fiends they've gone through. Yisang understood those hunting those that are outside of understanding plant seeds of doubt in many in their situation. Romero saw him as not off by much. He then saw that the bar was set by P Corp and the Hana Association for fixers taking part in this was shockingly low and indiscriminate. He would have set stricter conditions. He gestured them to look around and see who they're working with. They don't know what they're walking into. They should have hired only professionals for this. Well, there are those that could be used as canaries in cages to see if it's safe for the professionals. Dante wanted to understand this better. One of them that was with them was clearly a Sunk West fixer with a phone on a selfie stick. He was speaking to chat, asking if it was for real. There was a huge fight at the entrance, seeing it as amateur hour, asking if he has to stand shoulder to shoulder with those idiots for the contracts. Otis asked what he was doing. He continued to run his mouth, making dramatic poses at his phone that was recording. Dante didn't know why, although he reminded Dante of someone. Ishmael knew what they meant. He reminded them of Siegfried, that fixer under K-Corp's employ. As for this Sunk West fixer, he ran around for a while, visiting every corner of that empty lot, trying to get every detail in the frame. Then he strode towards them in an annoying gait. He then called to them, which excited Don Quixote, and that was only so that he could tell them to loiter somewhere else, as they were getting in the way of his viewers. Ishmael argued back that he's literally in their way. He pretended not to hear them, and looked back at the camera, seeing her words as not worth entertaining. He asked his audience where he was. He answered them by saying that he's in the back streets of District 16, where P Corp is, asking if they remember the 150 vintage semi-permanent canned ice cream unboxing and review livestream, telling them that he's not there to eat ice cream that day. Gregor asked what was he doing. Sinclair told him that he's talking to his viewers, who was watching this show. Masol adding that he's the host of a certain show. It's been reported that in certain parts of the city there's a new live streaming culture via those cameras that have been on the rise. Roger saw him as a rude piece of work. Don Quixote was struggling to contain herself, and Roger asked what was she keeping in. Don Quixote saw it as a glorious day, identifying the Sunk Fixer as Camille, one of the top 10 up-and-coming new generation fixers featured in the October issue of Fixers Monthly, one of the big three fixer magazines of the city. Ishmael then said that most people don't know that, then stops herself, seeing it as pointless. Don Quixote asked if she wasn't listening when she shared this with them, or any of her works. Heathcliff making it clear that he'd rather nap than listen to that blonde lunatic. Yusang made it clear that this made him feel nauseous, but this wasn't what she was focused on right now. She admired Camille. She didn't think that she'd be shaking hands with him, but none would do that yet. Based on this encounter, I'd either have a desire to get his selfie stick or rapier and shove it up his vain and self-important. I wouldn't be surprised if someone from the Shia Association wasn't hired to assassinate him. Although I'm unsure if it would cause problems between the associations, as at least with duels between sunk fixers, those don't cause any problems, because once the duel is concluded, that's the end of it as far as that association is concerned. Now, a live stream done by me in the city wouldn't work, would it? I could see how I'd do the introduction. Hello, city. I am NetMoverSitan. And here's Welcome to Hell! As let's be honest, the back streets are a place where hell can't be imagined to be much worse. Between the fighting between syndicates, the fixers earning a living doing the dangerous jobs that others are either too scared or ill-equipped to deal with, and then there are the less conventional horrors out there. I'm amazed that the city hasn't been wiped out yet. Anyone saying, everything will be fine is quite clearly a delusional nutcase that's so out of touch with reality, they actually think that a typical fixer is someone that isn't primarily motivated by money. But anyway, let's start with the main topic of the day. Distortions. What are they and what to do when you encounter them? Can you imagine what the comedy acts would be like in that universe? Then an armoured fixer walks in, seeing Camille as embarrassing, asking if he's really going to clown around with that thing while on a mission. Well, at least the damned dozen will have the assistance with their clown acts. Camille ignored her and introduced her as Paula from Zwei Association, his sidekick for that mission. Okay, Paula, what do you want to shove up his selfie stick or his rapier? Hard to know which would hurt more. Paula disputed the sidekick parts. He certainly has his head right up there, as he's ignored what she said, and made it clear that he's from the West, like her. This is due to her outfit, which was armor. He made it clear that Sunk Association sometimes sticks him with sidekicks like her against his will for some contracts, a joint operation, although he usually works alone. His hands are tied with the higher-ups on this one, who told him to do this. Yeah, we get it. You don't play nice with others. He then asked Paula to say hello to his dear fans. All he was met with was stony silence. This excited Don Quixote. Sunk and the Zwei working together. Well, that's debatable. Dante suspected her of tearing up. It was a blood-pumping feeling for her, elevating her heart rates. While Don Quixote needed little encouragement to be excited about fixers. She was surrounded by them. She only previously seen them through recordings, books, figurines, and now they're right in front of her. Okay, anyone think that if she was in our world, she'd be an otaku? Dante asked if she knew most of them. She would. if they were in one of the magazines she was subscribed to. Dante saw that if that was the case, and if they were all fixers, then she probably knows the person who was staring at them all this time. They asked Don Quixote who they were. She then observed them, believing that their reputation preceded them, finding this to be joyous. Asking it's why she avoided being part of a special feature on the front page of the newspaper in District 20. Then, after a noticeable silence, there was no look of recognition. She finally admitted that she didn't know about them. It's possible that they're a newly started office, but she knew that they were from the east based on their attire. The east of the city, to be more precise. Honglu saw this as a relief. He recognized who they were. So Honglu is from the east of the city, and his group therapy session is likely to be in one of the districts there. Don Quixote was surprised by this, recognizing a fixer that she didn't. Gregor told Massault not to look back at them. He saw no reason to avert his eyes. Gregor defined this as, well, a staring contest. Something rude. Sinclair saw them walking towards them, asking if they should wave. Gregor then decided that they should stare at them, to not come off as looking scared. Dante asked him if they knew that they're within hearing distance. Sinclair saw that they were right in front of them. The easily provocable Heathcliff told them not to look that way. Rather, not look away. Largely to not get caught unawares if they're over there to fight. Asking the female that's in charge if they have business with them. Then he was thrown off by the grin on Honglu's face, who was not aware that he'd introduced her to everyone so soon, telling them to say hello to Jia Zichun, his little sister. Dante was surprised by this development, as was Ishmael. Honglu didn't seem to recognize her. She was up to his knees in height last time he saw her. Jia Zichun, dressed in her black cheongsam or Mandarin gown, the ethnic dress of the Manchu, with gold detailing and long red sleeves, told him that she was a child last time he saw her. She was wondering what kind of impressive shenanigans he was preparing for since he left home, asking if that's all he's managed to build of his faction. He denied that they're his faction. He introduced them to her, starting with Gregor, who nervously greeted her. Rodia was about to introduce herself, but Jia Zichun cut her off, clearly having no time for those that she sees as fools. Honglu observed that she's not only grown in height, her circle of friends have grown too, just like his, asking if they're new. Dante saw calling them friends as a very optimistic assessment, largely due to them threateningly sizing them up, as if they're getting ready for a fight. Thankfully, they're unlikely to do this without Jia Zichun's order, or if they strike first. She asked if he really thought that they're her friends, seeing herself as still far behind her older siblings. Does that include Honglu? Clearly you have quantity over quality. Honglu understood. She asked him if he knew that some of them are still out there looking for him. Honglu does. In fact, he ran into Jia Huan earlier, which was 11 months ago, give or take, and had a quick chat with him. Jia Zichun saw him as lucky that he's still in one piece after a run-in with that. Well, he was likely prevented from killing him permanently by Herman. Also, as long as Dante is still alive, death is a temporary setback. But she doesn't know that part. Dante remembered when they first met Jiahuan. His words were full of venom, his look having nothing but contempt, as the others lay there dying. And that was a quick chat by Honglu's standards? Honglu was concerned about Jia Zichun's safety, as it was dangerous there. People went missing there, advising them to take refuge somewhere safe. Jia Zichun didn't know if he was trying to be funny or if he's genuinely worried about her. Most likely the latter, as he doesn't do jokes of that kind. Telling her naive brother that she got there first, earlier than him, and she didn't even consider those with him a faction, seeing them as second-rate minions. Nope, that was in the earlier missions, but they've improved since then. Asking condescendingly if it's making sense to him. She's there to take part in the eradication of La Mancha Land, seeing her intel on it as better than theirs. Honglu then asked why she's taking part in that. She doesn't need the reward money. Jia Zijun told him that he wasn't wrong, and he wasn't there for money either. Roger didn't see how she was trivializing this. Honglu was about to ask her what it was, but he stopped himself as neither Jia Zijun or Mr. Wei would answer that, even if he did ask. And Mr. Wei was the long-haired man that was asking for her permission. Then he walked towards them and bowed deeply and politely towards Honglu. Wei said to the young master, Honglu, that it's been a while, and Honglu agreed with this, asking if he's still escorting Jia Zichun. Wei is still in her service, despite his shortcomings. Honglu was worried that it might be too dangerous in there, asking Jia Zichun if she should tag along with them to do this together. This behavior didn't surprise Wei. Jia Zichun declined this offer and told him to stay out of her business, believing that they'd attract more attention than she'd like. She prefers to keep it discreet and told him not to embarrass her by talking to her. Honglu respected her wishes regarding that. Jia Zichun was hoping that he'd gotten better after all this time, at least since they last met. Honglu understood this to mean that he hadn't improved as far as she was concerned. She told him that he was fortunate that he ran into her. If it was one of their older siblings, he'd lose his head. He thanked her and made it clear that he appreciated that. This made Jia Zichun scowl as she was about to say something back, but she decided that it wasn't worth the efforts, and she left with her posse. Gregor said that it's rarer to see a happy family than an unhappy one. Heathcliff told him not to look at him. He never considered that dog, likely Hindley, his family. No, that wasn't what Gregor meant. Ryushu asked why he was looking at her, asking if he's expecting her to back him up. Gregor decided to stop trying with Ryushu. Honglu saw it as like old times. Roger asked if she was always this spiteful. Honglu didn't see this as spiteful. Apparently she's his most amicable sibling. Yisang struggled to believe this was still the case. Honglu confirmed that it was. And Yisang still struggled to comprehend this. He clearly didn't know what to think. Dante certainly saw it that way. Sinclair saw that they were holding a meeting in the tent and that they should probably join them. Dante saw the line of fixers go inside the makeshift command tent and agreed with them, or rather Sinclair, that they should join them. And they did. Okay, what we found out from here in this part of the story is that Honglu is from the eastern part of the city, so that's districts 3, 8, 9, 17, 18 and 19. Well, it's unlikely to be District 19, as he doesn't speak in the same way as Yi Sang, who is from there. It's unlikely to be District 3, as that's where the claws come from. Well, regardless of where it comes from, those in the eastern part of the city have they seem to be big on Chinese or Eastern Asian styles of clothing. Certainly based on Jia Zichun and Mr. Wei. We also found out that Honglu's family is dysfunctional at best, and outright toxic at worst, as the siblings are gathering their factions for a purpose that's likely to be revealed at some point after this chapter, where she's spiteful and full of disdain towards Honglu, her older brother, due to his cheerful and sociable manner. And she's the one that he gets on with the most? Apparently, if the older siblings were there, they'd do to him what the card guards would do to Alice, quicker than the Queen of Hearts would say, "Off with her head." Jia Huan criticized how his clothing smelled, saying that imagine if their family saw him there, even considering that they were in the middle of a battle with severe injuries and then knocked them unconscious on Herman's order. The only thing keeping him from doing as Jia Zichun stated was likely because Herman explicitly ordered him not to, which he would obey despite his own personal feelings. Clearly Encore saw the damned dozen as more useful to them alive. We'll likely meet the others of Honglu's family soon enough. Some of them he did the hair up for, based on what he told Heathcliff when they found out that he wanted to look presentable for Kathy when they were heading towards Wuthering Heights. But the showdown with Honglu's family is a story for another time, which isn't within District 16. Well, they know the basics of why they're there. In the next part, it will involve the specifics. Until next time, hail the rabbit!